Well, hi, everybody, and thank you very much for attending our second expert panel webinar for the Middle East, India, and Asia. And when I say everyone, thank you very much, everyone. There is over 1,100 people registered for this webinar. I hope you all get on. And Wada, you did it at the last minute again, twice in a row. Everybody, well, give me a hand. Excellent. Um, Dr. Wadaganam is from Dubai, everybody, and he wasn't sure if he could make it, but I'm so glad he could. Anyhow, I'm very excited about this expert panel webinar, Leading Indicators, What Would Make You Change? For those of you who are just joining us for this one, the first one we did was on COVID and complacency. And our expert panelists were telling us about COVID and what they were sort of doing in terms of the complacency and denial at their workplaces in India, the Middle East, Australia, and also other places around the world where they were operating. JLL is worldwide, where Dr. Pravina is from. But the original idea of this series was to provide reality instead of theory. Listen to the people who had to make the tough decisions about things like leading indicators. What would really make you change, or what would make your company pivot? Should you have zero harm in your mission statement or not? And how important is leadership, felt leadership? So those were the issues that this was originally based on. And I obviously speak at lots of conferences, and I hear lots of academics and professors and consulting firms. So there's lots of philosophy out there, and I thought that people would really like to hear from the folks where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, that had to make the tough decisions instead of the people who didn't necessarily have to live with the advice that they were giving. But with this COVID crisis, obviously, it became a priority for all of us. So we're going to just ask each of the panelists just to give us a brief update, if they could, just about COVID in their area. So and I also just want, if I could, briefly introduce our panelists. But again, the whole idea is that these were people who have to actually make the tough decisions, and it's not advice. They're just going to tell you what they do, and obviously, if you like it, you can do it. If it compares with what you're doing already, there's a certain comfort factor there. But again, they're just telling you what they do, and if you like it, you can certainly go with it. So let me, if I can, just introduce our panelists and get just another sip of something to drink. Sorry, everybody. But we have Dr. Wadaganam. He's the Director of Health, Safety, and Environment for Emirates National Oil Company. Dr. Wada has written 8 books now. I've only read one of them. Met Dr. Wada first at a conference in Prague, then again in New Delhi at the Gale conference, and then again in a conference in Kuwait. So very, very happy to have him here. And he also does a lot of work with boards of directors, so we can also get him to talk about leading indicators at that level. And we also have Mr. Shankar with us. He's head of quality safety systems and process improvements at Sterling Wilson Solar. He's worked in the Middle East, India, and currently he is in Australia. So hopefully, Shankar, you can give us a bit of perspective on how COVID is doing in Australia. We hear bits and pieces on the news about sort of flare-ups again, even though they were doing really well. We have also Dr. Pravina Dorothy back again. She's head of EH&S for West Asia for JLL. And I've been on site with Dr. Pravina and her group in Bangalore. Just excellent group of folks there. So Dr. Pravina, again, thank you very much for coming back. We also have Arun, and Arun is from Coromandel in VSAG, and I've also been on site there as well. About 1,200 people at this chemical plant. They make fertilizer there, and very well run. Very well run. Everybody, I was very happy being there, and I felt comfortable as well too. And the people and the culture, the leadership group was really good. And so the folks that we have here aren't just, it's not just that they work for prestigious companies. They're also, in my opinion, people who, are worth listening to for sure. And last but not least, we have Mr. Santosh Kumar, and he is Chief Health and Safety Officer for Cairn Oil, Cairn Oil and Gas. But we couldn't get his camera to work. But Santosh, can you hear me? And could you say hello to everybody?
Yeah, I'm able to hear you, Larry. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and welcome everyone to this very apt and right topic on the subject right now.
Yeah,
leading indicator safety.
Yeah, we had a great chat. We had a great chat yesterday. It's too bad about the camera, Santosh. Anyhow, it's a very handsome man, everybody, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that out. So, if I could, Mr. Sankar, just tell us first of all, how, you've worked all over the Middle East, Australia, India, but you're in Australia now. So, just a brief update on COVID. Certainly not over yet. We're doing okay in Canada, but as you probably all heard, the south of the border not doing so well in the United States. But tell us a bit about how Australia is doing. And then if you could, just tell us which leading indicators you tend to believe in the most, Shankar.
Thanks, Larry. So I come in from Sterling Wilson Solar, a global pure play end-to-end solar engineering, procurement, and construction solutions provider, one of the largest solar EPC solution providers in the world. And we've got offices in 25 countries and projects in 18. So as we speak, there's been challenges across the transition. I myself have made the great escape from Australia. I'm en route back to Dubai, and therefore the plain background, pun intended. But I started my journey in January in India, went into Dubai in February, went into Australia the last 5 months. So each country has seen different levels of transitions on COVID. And I guess the last webinar, I'm a rollover contestant, is it's never over until it's over. So the complacence that sometimes hits could be a challenge. So as we speak, I'm one of those I can successfully say have tested COVID negative, which is a very positive news. How do we get to that? And that you could see is thanks to a lot of the lead indicators, the efforts I've made to take full protection, the PPEs, wearing the masks, wearing my face shield as it were, social distancing, administrative controls, having a lot of checks and balances, use of various social distance meetings, being away from office, working from home in terms of elimination, and still continue to do that. So I guess, as we can say on the COVID context, it's a very similar approach to what you spoke about. The more you lead, the less you will lag. So the sins always tend to catch up with you if you take precautions. And I know in the US, and greetings on Canada Day, Larry. And in the US, you can see a surge in cases. In a couple of states in Australia, there's still been a second coming. There is a second wave, even in China when we spoke last. And I guess this is something that is never going to end, it seems. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. But until the vaccine comes, you can never be too careful. So lead indicators plays a big role, folks, in the scheme of things. We got to fix the foundation by looking at leading always, and that's the only way to be proactive.
Yeah, okay, well, I mean, I've certainly, I was talking with Anthony Panapinto. He's from Procter & Gamble, their head epidemiologist. This is his 7th pandemic he's been through with the company. And he said, I think we actually do a better job sometimes with leading health indicators sometimes than we do with leading safety indicators. So just to your point there. Okay, well, let me, if I can, just move on to Dr. Pravina. Dr. Pravina, how are things in Bangalore in terms, just a brief update on COVID, and then just from a general health and safety point of view, what leading indicators do do you believe in, or do you find the most reliable, or do you encourage the most? You know, which ones are closest? You know, the ones that'll make you, you know, really take action, I guess, is what I'm looking for. You know, that kind of thing. But just brief update on COVID first, if you could.
Thank you, first of all, Larry, for having me again on the
Oh no, my
panel.
pleasure.
About COVID update related to Bangalore. It is increasing as of now, but it is in a controlled fashion. So the government had actually taken up steps to control, ensure implementation of social distancing, wearing of mask in public places and all. So these have been helping us to ensure that the numbers are in control, even though there is an increasing trend noticed. So that is generally about the COVID in Bangalore. And regarding indicators, I would like to touch upon generally about what and all indicators we look into. As JLL is a global company with a presence in 80 countries, and we have a separate global structure of HSE itself. So safety culture is a priority in JLL. And from that aspect, when we look into the leading indicators which we are trying to follow is, they fall basically, I could put it into three categories. One is observation based, that is unsafe act or unsafe condition needs to be reported. Second is operations based, like preventive maintenance or hazard identification, risk assessment, control of hierarchy, etc. The third one is something which we would aim for. That is the self or human-based indicators, like something psychological perspective comes into play, behavioral perspective comes into play, something like complacency or fatigue or rushing and all comes into play. So that's something which we would be aiming at, but as of now, we are working with both observation based and operations based lead indicators. And we try to bring in technology into it. For example, we have got an app, JLL app, which is called Don't Walk By. So if anyone sees any unsafe act or condition, immediately it is captured and escalated basically. And we have an internal reviewing system of reviewing how many are coming and what is the percentage deviation. If there is some recurrence, what are the, we go back and check these steps which are being taken, processes and all. So that is how it is being managed.
Oh, very good, very good. I mean, and I should have mentioned to everybody just before we all got into this that we all know that some leading indicators are more reliable than others. Unfortunately, none of them are perfect. Near miss reports are valuable in terms of preventing the next one, but the number of near miss reports being turned in is also important. You know, in terms of the willingness of people to turn things in is important. Like you said, observations can be a great leading indicator for problem areas, but they've got to be quality observations, obviously. And the same thing with audits. Audits can be great leading indicators. However, a low quality audit that gives a very favorable score could also lead to a false sense of security. But like I said before, in the end, somebody's got to decide, you know, which ones we're going to believe in and which ones we're going to react to and how we're going to do it. So, Dr. Wada, I know before the pandemic, like I mentioned, everybody, you were traveling all over Europe, India, and Kuwait. In addition to your work at Enoch in Dubai, but you also work with a lot of boards of directors as well too in the UK for some big companies. So if you wouldn't mind, just a brief little update on how things are going with COVID in the EU in your area, hopefully well, and then what leading indicators do you find the real senior level people at the company pay attention to, or maybe which ones do you try to get them to pay more attention to? However you'd like to go at that one.
Thanks, Larry. It's good to be back with you guys online. Let me firstly just make a bit of a correction to your introduction. As you recall, Larry, I am not in charge of HSE here at Enoch anymore. I look after sustainability, business, and operational excellence at the moment as a senior director. But yeah, I've been in agency for more than 20 years of my life. I still continue to work in this area in terms of publications and in terms of thought leadership in this area. So anyway, in terms of your question regarding COVID, I think the situation is getting better, and I think just to go back to Dr. Praveena's last point about human-based indicators, I mean human factors. I think the situation is getting better because people are actually getting used to being self-disciplined in terms of a new norm. But at the same time, there should be a balance because there's a lot of people who are very, very concerned and very worried, and they're really very paranoid. They become very, very paranoid of many different things. I mean, when we talk about risk assessment, we talk about the probabilities and things that are going to happen. For you to get any human being to get COVID and then actually suffer because of COVID and then God forbid actually pass away because of COVID, the chance of that happening is probably similar at the moment to well, it's probably much less than, for example, dying in a car crash, come driving down to work. So, we've got to take things into perspective, but we need to understand what are the kind of measures, what are the kind of preventative measures that we need to take into account and understand that there are some leading indicators which are basically related to what we do in terms of prevention. So, I like the way that Dr. Praveen has explained that there's observation, there's operation, there's the human-based indicators as well. But when you talk about really for example, as an organization, I like always using with senior people the bow tie, because I believe that the bow tie methodology is very pictorial. A picture speaks 1,000 words. It's very, very useful to sort of explain to senior management about the question of barriers and show them physically that look, there's these barriers, and you need to talk about the strength of the barrier, and you need to talk about how these barriers are connected together, and if they are actually independent barriers or non-independent barriers. And they understand this because it's very easy for someone to sort of understand, especially when you illustrate with examples. So the link between these barriers and how they're independent of each other, and then the strength of each and understanding the strength of each barrier to sort of prevent. So we spoke about, and I think Shankar spoke about, the kind of preventative measures that we're putting in place. These are nothing but barriers, and measuring leading indicators is just measuring the health of those barriers. One of the most important things about demonstrating and explaining to senior management using the bow tie methodology is explain to them the causality. And I find a lot of senior managers sometimes lack insight into the causality between not having this in place or not doing this and then this ending up happening. It's not because they wouldn't want to.
I agree. I think they more think it's I think much more they believe in overall correlation, like you and I were talking about before, the tide rising with all these leading indicators, but in terms of specific belief in any one of them, I like the idea of the bow tie water. I really like the idea of being able to illustrate some of that stuff for them. Is there anything in particular that I should ask Arun as I move on? But Arun, what I mean, I've been at your site at Coromandel, like I said, and it was really good. But tell us a bit how things are going in VSAG there with COVID, and then just what leading indicators Well, what leading indicators do you take seriously? Anything that would make you shut the place down or make a significant change of direction? Like, anything that you believe in enough to do that? I want to hear a bit about COVID first, though, too. So go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Larry, and welcome to all co-panelists. I'm very excited to be here in this panel. Larry, as you rightly said, and as I was hearing Shankar, Dr. Praveena, and Dr. Vada, there are a lot of activities that is going on in each and every companies because of this dynamic situation which is happening on. And when it comes specific to the COVID situation in some of the places, because we operate in 6 different states, and each state has its own challenges. Somewhere the manpower is the challenge. Some places the challenge is because of incidents in industries nearby, where then things become much more critical for you to operate, more stringent regulations, more inspections before you start up the company, and so on. So the challenges are different. And if you take Vizag, we have more of local manpower, so we don't have issues. But when we take states like Udaipur or North, we have migrant laborers where they have all gone back, and we have challenges to get back the migrant laborers in those areas.
Right,
so
right,
those are
right.
the we have, and we have grown over a period of time dynamically. Every day we have a review with the senior leadership to see what's new happening, what are the new guidelines released by the authorities. So how do we take it forward? What are the new regulations that we have to meet, and so on. So the challenges are ongoing. Coming to the leading indicators, see, what I see, Larry, is that one of the key leading indicators is the transparency and commitment of the top leadership. If that is visible to the people, so a lot of things are put in place. The second thing is the care for stakeholders. I mean, if your business have to sustain, your stakeholders have to come along with you. So one of the things that we look at is our stakeholders, whether it's our supply chain, our raw material suppliers, or any other party's marketing team, or whoever is there, is also as healthy as us, or prepared as us to overcome this situation. So one thing constantly we are looking at and seeing that how we can run our business without compromising on all the requirements. To be very frank, one of our plants have been continuously running, it has never shut down. We being essential commodity, and we need to cater to the farmers, and being the farming season, we have been running some plants with the approval of authorities, but with reduced manpower. Right. Then comes the challenge of having reduced manpower and then to run an industry in a staggered manner. That's another challenge. Another factor which I would like to bring in is that going for a corrugated health check of people, which can trigger for a test or anything if required, like your oxygen concentration in blood, your blood tests, and all this. And one of the things what we have done is people with comorbidity, we have asked them to stay back home. People above 55 years stay back home and work. And those are the things that we have considered in Coromandel, so that we control it as much as possible, we prevent any spread, and also we have gone to an extent of what we have done is we have conducted some sort of sessions with doctors for not only employees but also their families, so they understand what is this whole issue about, how they will be able to manage it, what are the precautions they need to take. One gray area we have is when people go back home, you have good controls within the plan, but when they go back home, what are the activities where they move around? We have no control. That's a gray area. So we need to educate the families also, so that the employee who is reaching back home is taken care well, his family is taken care well, and so that we can reduce the exposures.
That's, I
So that-
gotta.
So,
You
so
forced me to
ultimately,
plug my.
when you
You
go
forced me
and
to
look at your
plug my.
indicators,
You
if you have
forced me
less
to plug
cases,
my
better.
coloring book for the kids, the
That's why.
Ouchbusters versus COVID. Try to give people something to take home to the fam. Well, because you're right. I mean, you've got to help the families, right? So I thought, well, coloring book would be an easy way to do it. And if you print enough of them, you can print them cheaper than people can print them at home, right? So it's sort of a good deal for everybody. Coming back to we have one more guest, everybody, that just couldn't get on camera if you're just joining us. So Mr. Santos, you're up in New Delhi, and so how are I've heard not good up in New Delhi in Delhi in terms of COVID, but give us a brief update on how things are going there, and then tell us what leading indicators you know you find to be the most important or the ones you believe in the most. Are you there, Mr.
Thank you, Larry.
Oh, good, you're here.
Yeah, I'm able to hear everyone. I was muted.
Excellent.
So coming to my company, Kane Energy, it is operating in upstream business, E&P business in Rajasthan, part of India. 80% of our business is in Rajasthan, and then offshore is staggered into two places, in one in Gujarat and the other one is in Kakinada, Andhra Pradesh. So that is 20% part of our business. So 25% of our crude oil production of India's demand is supplied by Kane Energy right now, and we are aspiring for 50% of total demand. So the day this pandemic was announced, so as we are talking of leading indicators, what our management decided to prepare a business continuity plan for our business, since people at the site are working on 21-21 on-off pattern. So
Okay.
since lockdown was announced, so they were told proactively, they were told to stay there only, even if they have completed their 21 days, and continue on duty, because it is a residential come official premises wherein accommodation and all facilities are provided there, and it's a without family accommodation are there. So people are used to that. But
Stuck there working for the duration of the war. Is that basically like it? You just drew the wrong straw and your shift lasts forever now.
Like that.
Holy smokes. Wow. That's interesting, Santos. But tell me, just prior to COVID and like what just general health and safety leading indicators meant the most to you folks at Cairn Energy?
Yeah, so that I was coming into. So here at NCR, Delhi region and Gurgaon, where the office is situated, the conditions still are not very good. If you can be aware of the news, right now at Delhi itself, it is 87,000 cases.
Okay. Oof. That's a lot. Yeah. Wow.
Recovery. And in Gurgaon, it is 4,000 plus and recovery is 50%. So coming to our company, in my company, 2 cases were detected on site and 2 in corporate office. The office was closed, but it was detected outside the office, and all the 4 people means took home care facility from through reputed tie-up hospital, and they got recovered also. 100% recovery was there for all the 4 cases. Coming to leading indicators, what we did, we started with business continuity plan, then staggered means timing of the means lunch hours and dinner hours, because site people were having accommodation at the premises of site itself. And then we got the tie-up of sanitization, fumigation, and deep cleaning through third party. The contract was done within 3 days. And we ensured that on a daily basis, entire sanitization of each and every touch point is done to the third party. And on a weekly basis, the deep cleaning and fumigation process is done. And we also initiated doctor on call facility, means remote consultation for all the people who are on work from home. The corporate office was closed, and so to support them, them also the contractual workforce with their family members. The contract was rolled out from company through Apollo. So anybody can contact that doctor on call. That was free of cost, the consultation part.
Wow. Okay.
And
Very good.
yeah, so that is still continuing. So it has been about 5 months. Companies paying for that. So that was a proactive indicator which gave lot of means assurance for the employees and their families that they are being taken care, nothing to worry about. And all the when the office was opened, so all the people who are means not having this cab facility and group facility, they were told to stay at home. Only the senior people were requested to come office, on that too on a staggered 30% attendance basis. And right now I'm sitting in office, only means few of the people have come
that's why your camera doesn't work, right? Because you went to the office. There's probably a firewall. Yeah. Well,
so,
Ms. Santos, thank you very much. Mr. Shankar, on the other side of the coin, okay, so leading indicators that would make a pivotal change in an organization, which ones do you have enough confidence in to actually say, yeah, we need to shut this down, or we need to make a 90-degree move here? Or if you will, what leading indicators, if they are all coming in the way you want to see them, make you sleep well at night or give you a feeling of comfort? And then I'll move on from that to what we talked about, which is just how small a band of comfort you can have before you get complacent, which means you can't be comfortable anymore. But anyhow, which leading indicators, like from a negative point of view, if you saw them a 50% drop in near miss reporting, or if you saw something, something in terms of audits or inspection reports, which ones do you believe in the most in terms of making a significant change? And then which ones give you that comfort feel that things are humming along well, and we're doing the right stuff, and we're doing the right amount of stuff?
So that's an interesting question, Larry. The context, like it began with health in the times of the pandemic, all of us focusing on health, logical also, as I mentioned, transitioning from midwinter in Australia to the peak summer in the Middle East. And we had issues of people who had heat stroke, and there were deaths, and looking at the indicators that go ahead of that, the health indicators that add up to a heat stroke also are the ones we need to look at. Illnesses, like I said, could be really the base of the proverbial Heinrich pyramid. So I guess that's where you'd start. Also, like I mentioned, on the hierarchy of controls on the COVID, from the elimination, substitution, engineering controls, admin to the PPEs, also works the other way around in building up the foundation by looking at the lead indicators. I worked in process industries, Larry. Ashok just spoke about the sad incident at Navy yesterday, the boiler explosion. And I guess there's the behavioral safety pyramid, and then there is the technical safety pyramid. Behavioral safety pyramid looks at people issues and the human factors, as Dr. Vardhan Pravina spoke about, the slips, trips, and falls, and those kind of looking at things. But the process industry would look at some things slightly different, looking out for minor sparks, integrity risks, mechanicity risks, slips, interlocks, bypasses, and you're talking of risk assessments. So the process safety management pyramid, and you're looking at the catastrophic outcomes of some of the incidents we're hearing of late, also is important. So I guess it's also critical, whatever you do, and you spoke about the quality of the observations. I guess the safety observation program should focus on the quantity. The more people there are looking out for unsafe acts conditions, the better it is, the safer we will be. Sometimes we get into an analysis paralysis. I would still say that if you're able to identify observations, try and do some amount of stop, or Pravina spoke about the observations, the SafeStart observations. If you're able to observe it, awareness is the first step of risk mitigation. And the more observations you have by the people around the shop floor, the people around the industry, you could say, the safer we are. On
So
a process compliance
I don't want to put you on the spot here, Shekhar, but the observations, like your of all the leading indicators, are they your favorite, or you need all of them. I don't think you can just go with one, but the ones that tend to mean the most to you, would they be the observations, or would they be? I mean, I would like, I'd say the observations, the inspections, and the communications would be my big three, but other people have different opinions, obviously, right? That's.
I
But
would agree with you, Larry. Those are the critical ones. The safety observations is the big ones. Having said that, I would look at a lead lag indicator, and the lead indicators to be a combination of a lot of these, the audits, including the risk assessments done, understanding how we do the drills as we speak. All of that adds up to the base. So the stronger the base, the safer the ship, and therefore it's a combination of those. But a strong safety observation, and as Santosh mentioned, openness and transparency, that we look at it, that would really add up to make the ship real safe.
Okay. What? I just got to make sure I'm at the right spot here. Dr. Pravina, what leading indicators does your senior leadership group there take the most seriously, or what do you try to encourage them to take the most seriously? I don't know which way that would actually go in terms of the communication, but which ones mean the most to those folks up there?
So from leadership perspective, the leading indicators which especially audit bringing in high risk, we have a strong audit system, internal audit system, where we have a group of EHS board members who audit all accounts on annual basis. So anything which is raising it as a high risk, medium risk, which is flagged, it is flagged through that is also system control. We have got a dashboard, business assurance dashboard, to which it actually is visible to all senior leadership. Anything which is flagged high, red especially, it catches their attention immediately. And apart from that, the leading indicators like safety observations and all, which is happening recurrently. Since it is COVID now, I'll just give an example. For example, we had one employee coming in without a mask, and at the reception, he was taking out the mask. So when we observed it, that it is being picked up, but during the travel, the mask isn't worn, there is a complacency which is setting in. So that behavioral is a trigger. Leading indicator is a trigger basically. So anything which, then we had to look into the process where we got in touch with the admin team, HR team, and our leaderships, RVDs. So they started working together, and then it is a top-down approach which actually helped us to resolve these issues so that complacency doesn't set in. So anything which raises the flag, as Dr. Vada said, show the consequences. What is the worst case scenario which can happen? That will attract the attention of top leadership.
Okay, all right. Dr. Pravina, while you were talking, a question just came in. If you could just real quickly, they wanted to know if you're sorry, the program you mentioned the don't walk by. Is it internal or outsourced? Can you throw more light onto that for us, Dr. Pravina, please? So
that is an internally developed program for JLL and JLL clients, wherein it is an app which was developed by our own technology team. So anyone with, nowadays all of us have a smartphone, and anyone, it is not restricted only to safety professionals or only facility managers and all. It is available for all. Anyone who's doing a walk around or just going somewhere, having a coffee or tea nearby vending machine, and there is some unsafe condition which they are looking at, like spillage of water or something on the floor, as simple as that. They can just click a picture and then it
Right,
will get
okay.
escalated immediately. So it actually evolved from initially there was like box type wherein we go and put in the chits, unsafe conditions and unsafe acts and all. So it got evolved over the period into an app.
Okay, okay.
And
Excellent.
that is instantaneous. We don't have to wait. It will immediately show, the mails notifications will come into the account managers, leaders, mailbox instantaneously.
Yeah, I know it's interesting what you can do with some of that stuff in terms of well, just with Rate Your State as well too, right? You can record all of it in real time so easily. Dr. Wada, what leading indicators do you like when they're humming along, I guess, which ones do you find the most comfort in, or which ones do you think indicate that the organization is likely going to remain at a high reliability level? I know you work with a lot of highly reliable organizations. So which ones do you get them to focus on?
Yeah. So okay, thanks. Let me just for the benefit of our viewers today. There are two competing theories when it comes to accident causation. One of them is called the natural accident theory, NAT, and then there's the HRO theory, which is the high reliability organization theory. The difference is in the natural accident theory, going back to what I explained about the bow tie, you have certain barriers, and these barriers stop natural trajectories of things happening. I'm driving a car. There are many things that can go wrong, and I could get into a collision. And then what happens is that I've got all these kind of different barriers which are put in place, which prevent the incident from happening. An ABS on the braking system. There's some cars today have got proximity alarms. They help you, with the early braking, etc. And then there's obviously, if you do get into a crash, then you've got this this balloon which comes up, what's called it, the airbag and stuff like that. But to explain to leadership really and get their understanding about what is the question of prevention, and again going back and understanding the health of the barriers, I'd like to give an example when we talk about HROs. I explained to you how the aviation industry looks at things. So if two planes are coming into land and they're behind each other, got slots to come to the landing in the landing path, and now about to come to the runway, back to the runway to descend. They need to maintain, as per international law, a certain distance between them, which is typically about 2 nautical miles. In the aviation industry, and I would like to sort of for people to see this, and then compare it to the other industries, maybe the oil and gas or manufacturing industry and stuff like that. So as the planes are coming into land, if they close that gap less than 2 nautical miles, this is immediately logged in as an incident. So the observation authorities would look at this, and then they would log this in as an incident. They wouldn't log this in as an EMS or whatever, or oh yeah, nothing did happen. They would log it in as an incident. They want to understand why, the gap closed from 2 nautical miles to 1.8 nautical miles. This is a question of thinking. This is a question of philosophical thinking. That okay, listen, we don't want to wait for these 2 planes to crash, because if they crash, it would be so catastrophic that we must now maintain such a safe distance, and then we should measure what happens within that safe distance, and if we close the safe distance. This is how you develop high reliability operations. So this is how you explain to leadership that, look, when you put in the impact, when you look at the impact analysis, and then you study the investment into these barriers to strengthen the barriers, right? So this is where you can sort of convince. So high reliability organizational theory really looks at that there are pillars. For example, that there's agility within the organization to move There is a redundancy beyond purely technology. There is multiple communication channels. In case one communication channel sort of fails, then you can always go back and go to another one. So it is really more about agility, because it assumes that complexity in whatever we do, whatever industry we're in at the moment, if it's aviation or if it's oil and gas or if it's manufacturing or if it's whatever, farming even, everything is more complex because systems become more complex, equipment has become more complex, and the human factors relating to dealing with that kind of level of complexity. I mean, today, even a car, and driving a car in the past, driving, just think about it, driving a manual car versus driving an automatic car, right? And the complexity that we used to focus on before about driving, you actually feel like you're driving. I mean, when I go back, sometimes I drive a manual car, and it's always good fun, because you remember, what it feels like to really drive a car, right? And now we're talking about autonomous driving. So autonomous driving,
my kids can't drive a manual car, and they say I can't drive a phone. So I guess it's fair enough. Arun, what leading indicators do you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Finish, Wada.
Sorry, one last point. So I just wanted to say that, when we are specifying these leading indicators, if it's, management walkarounds or audits and this and that, I think you said something at the beginning, which is really very, very important. Probably one of the most important things that we should know about leading indicators, or any indicators for that matter. It is the quality of that audit, or it's the quality of that management. Was there an impact of that management walk around? It's not that you've done the management walk around. What has come out of it? And as we discussed before, when I was talking to these leading, big 5 consultants once about, putting in, indicators and balanced scorecard for this organization, I was telling them, look, it's important to have the leading and the lagging indicators. And there was a different philosophy, and I remember we had the discussion about this. And they said, listen, my friend, if you're going to give performance, you give performance to leaders or what they've been able to achieve. At the end of the day, I want to see what happened in the end. If you've had a less accident rate, very good. So a less accident rate or a more accident rate is a lagging indicator, right? Is what the performance brought to you. So, we do a lot of things in terms of leading, and I think one of the biggest issues and biggest challenges, and I'll just say this and then shut up, that one of the most important things is us as sort of HSC practitioners, we're not able to explain to leadership that, listen, it's important because of this causality issue, that look, if these leading indicators become better, you're going to get better performance, because there is a time gap, and there needs to be a leap of faith from the leadership. Thanks.
No, I thank you, Wada. No, and it's a good point too. And I just, we're getting all kinds of questions coming in, and I want to try to get to some of them. But I also want to ask, Arun and Santosh what leading indicators they get a sense of comfort from as well. In other words, when what reports coming in, what is it that sort of makes you feel comfortable, Arun, in terms of, proactive leading indicators at your sites?
So, Larry, yeah.
Go ahead.
So, this year when we were setting the KPI for our leaders, business leaders, so we thought of taking the paradigm shift from reporting of lagging indicators to leading indicators. So we started having the data of benchmarking with the world best oil and gas companies. And I was surprised to know that though I am getting in the annual reports the details of lagging indicators, but the leading indicators data was not available up to the expectation.
Right.
So we allocated 60% of the KPI in the form of leading indicators and 40% for lagging indicators.
Okay, so 60-40, right? Okay.
Yeah, 60-40. So in this 60%, we included certain parameters like visible Fed leadership, which included further included safety interaction with the workers number of safety interactions, then hazard tours at the site, then also the reviews, the safety meetings with the workers and the supervisors, and attending the mass toolbox talk gatherings through the leadership. These were the
Excellent.
first of the thing, yeah, in the form of VFL. And the second part was the part of audit, like the auditing of the permits. So earlier what used to happen, that safety guys used to audit the permits, the critical jobs permits, whenever job is under progress, even the permits which have been closed. Now we have given the task of auditing the permits to line function. Cross functional they can audit, and we have given the one of the format for auditing the same. And then we'll get to know what are the gaps in terms of critical risk controls, and then address to that. Then third part was related to the incident investigation outcome, whatever is coming. So the lateral learning means what happens, corrective action is there whenever there is any incident and the recommendations are there. So people do the corrective actions on a particular unit where the incident has occurred, but the lateral learning or the horizontal deployment was lagging. Means, so we rolled out in entire business for similar cases of compliance of the learnings for all the businesses on similar activity. So that, and that through the line function, line managers. So
Well,
this was another KPI.
I mean, it's certainly proactive. Although I could see how some people might say, well, it's reactive. You did it after the fact. You got the information out to everybody, but certainly a great idea. The other ideas, though, Mr. Santos, about the actually taking, if you, I don't want to use the word faith in the wrong sense, but to have confidence that the number of leadership contacts and the obviously if the quality stays the same, that's a very meaningful leading indicator. And as Wada said, and as Dr. Pravina said, the quality of all of these things, zero times 1,000 is still zero. And I spent the first 15 years teaching people how to, make observations, but I also know that lots of people filled out observation cards in their office without ever talking to somebody and turned them in. And, that gives us misleading leading indicators. But Arun, I did not mean to leave you in the wings for so long. My apologies. Tell us about what leading indicators give you a feeling of confidence that things are going to be okay tomorrow at your sites, and that you don't have it, things can always happen, but as far as the system, the process, as they would say, all 8 cylinders are firing. Tell us what some of those cylinders are that make you feel comfortable.
Right, Larry, I was hearing Santosh and also Shankar talking about these process indicators, because any process industry has multiple challenges now. One is looking into the COVID management. Second is the process management to run the industry safe. So ultimately, you need people to protect themselves against COVID and also come and deliver the process side without causing deviation and running the plant safe. Now, process indicators, most process industries who are having process management system, they have indicators, as Santosh mentioned, on the corporate leadership, on the culture, on management of change, on asset integrity, on employee participation, and so on.
Can you talk a bit about management of change? That was one of the questions that came in. Sorry, just if you can fit it in there. I'll try to get as many in as we can. I know we don't have much time left, but there was a question from somebody about that in terms of leading indicators. So go ahead and tee off on that one if you'd like.
So talking about management of change in the process industry, any change that you want to make on a permanent basis or a temporary basis, you have to subject it to management of change. And number of management of change you have done following all the process requirement with the proper risk assessment, and also you don't go and regularize the management of change. So when you audit the team, you find you have made a change, then you go and fill in the MOC forms, that's not going to be right. That shows a bad indicator, and that shows something is wrong with the culture there. Or you have a temporary change which is not put back in place. That also is an indicator which shows that you have not taken a timely action. So as I think we see that one is on the management change on the process side. Another thing which we look at is the management change on the organization side, where you have critical positions. When these critical positions move, or you have a vacant position, you don't fill it, and you don't have MOC, you don't take a safety exception for that, that also is an indicator that you have bad safety culture. And that's very, very critical for organization, not only to have management of change for process, but also for management of organizational changes. So all these are on the management of change side. But coming back to the COVID, apart from the process leading indicators, for me, again, I want to stress that if I have to look at an organization, how they have managed COVID, I just will go and see how many people contact has the management made, how many meetings on managing COVID have they conducted, how many work policies they have changed during this period to manage the COVID situation. Have they gone and changed their health policies? Have they gone and included in the insurance COVID coverage for the employees? Have they gone and included free health checkup? There are a lot of policies. What is the working hours? Have they gone and changed working hours? How are they making the payment for the employees? So all these policies, when you see a change in policies come to manage COVID, and you see the top management, the corporate leadership communicating on a regular basis, addressing COVID issues, that itself is a very good indicator to show that the company is doing well to take care of the COVID situation. Yeah. And you see, one of now we are trying to get in a system which is a software where the cameras can detect temperature. One guy need not stand and measure your temperature physically. So we are working with a company called Sensipal who's bringing this system for us, where it also raises an alarm if people come within 6 meters to each other. So these proactive steps which we can, if even the mask, if you don't put your mask, it doesn't cover your nose, it gives a warning alarm that it's employee, and you can trace it back to the employee. The announcement can be made by the name of the employee. So that much of with that much speed the technology has developed in this short period, and how you going to adopt, and is the management willing to invest in all this? Of course, it depends on the healthiness, financial healthiness of the company also. So right, well, yeah, a lot of things that companies can do, and people have to be vigilant, watchful. What are the developments that is happening in this field? What are changes? Even masks, you just see how we change the usage of masks. Initially, we say the mask was N95 that has to be used. Slowly, we shifted. Even to control the spread, you can go for a cloth mask. And then we have come back. Now we are again surplus, or we have sufficient number of N95 and other PPEs produced in India today, and we are self-sufficient today with that. And I also heard an interesting thing that people who are having PPEs, who use PPEs, as I was mentioning the other day, some of the workers are who refuse to use the helmet or shoes are willing to use the mask because there is a sort of imminent danger they see with COVID situation. So that's very interesting.
Interesting. That's very, very interesting. He says Larry, as he just touches his face. I've been thinking about it, Shankar. I know I'm at 4. I know I'm at well 4 done. For this broadcast already. There's another question, Dr. Pravina, for you, or it could be Shankar. You could handle it, or Arun. But they want to know, and I know you don't know the answer because I haven't sent it to you yet. But they want to know if there's like an observation card for COVID, like SafeStart or something that you're using. And we are just releasing this COVID complacency and critical error reduction techniques course, like literally tomorrow in English. So they haven't got a card yet from us that they could use. But did you incorporate some COVID stuff into your Don't Walk By program?
Very much
So
so. Maybe
we do.
Go ahead, Shankar, and then I'll end up with Dr. Pravina, and then we'll probably, well, I got that one last question for all of you, which please don't go away, everybody, because this, I think, is by far the most interesting part of all of this. At least it was for me. But very quickly there, Shankar, what have you guys morphed any of the COVID
yes,
stuff
we
into
have.
your observation
We
stuff?
have. It's come into being. It's nicely transitioned, as Arun said. It's become a part of life. Looking out for COVID conditions, like I said, the hierarchy of controls also seems to be on COVID. The risk assessment is now on COVID, and like I said, it's all about an inadequate risk perception that caused incidents, be it health-related or otherwise. So the way to do this is to identify incident prevention opportunities, looking at unsafe condition situations. Even when people came into the site, I'm in the construction industry where the Henrich pyramid is kind of truncated, less incidents, less observations would result in a major catastrophe. So looking at immediate correction, remediation is done by having lead indicators that focus on health. Yes, COVID cards have come in a long way. Discussions, and I guess the leadership connect, more meetings, having more safety observations, having more people looking out for health. COVID has become a part of life, and I guess we move forward towards that. Dr. Pravina, over to you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, for sure, Dr. Pravina, yes.
So we do have a self-health analysis check which is done, and it is an application which was developed specifically for COVID. So any person who is coming into site needs to undergo this self-health check. It includes all the parameters which Arun, Shankar and all were mentioning, like comorbidities, or have they traveled before. So all the indicators, and whether they have been in contact with the COVID positive persons, and also these are all listed. In addition to that, we make the most use of the Government of India's Arogya Setu app. So that app is a Bluetooth enabled app, and which gives us the information. If someone crosses me and that person had been COVID positive, immediately it will reflect on my app. So that is something which has been very useful for us to which we use it.
All right. Well, I got another message to say to tell our viewers to go to covid.safestart.com, and you can check out the course and all of that stuff, the coloring book for the kids and everything. So covid.safestart.com. The one last thing I wanted to ask, and I've now asked this to the North American panelists as well too, and I talked to all of you about this as well, and asked you to think about it. So overnight, I don't know if you've come up with an example, but the question, ladies and gentlemen, to all of the panelists was, in your career, either at your current company or previously in your career, can you think of an instance where, based on leading indicators, not a negative reactive action like Exxon Valdez and that, the company going through operations integrity, I mean, not a reactive accident, but just based on proactive leading indicators, an example of a major pivot that a company has done, or a shutdown, something like that. So none of the North American panelists could think of an example. Dr. Wada gave me one earlier today, but it was basically, an in the moment correction on a scaffolding thing. So anyhow, have any of you thought of an example since then? Shankar, did you think of one?
I'll keep it very simple. We spoke about various barriers of control and appreciate the bow tie model that Dr. Vada spoke about. The cause, consequence, effect, and building in the barriers is important to prevent incident. But if you really want to go beyond goal zero harm, it's about keeping it simple. So I'll just say across my various industries.
You're leading into the next webinar, Shankar. You are the master of segue there. The next one, ladies and gentlemen, is on zero harm. Yes or no? Should it be part of your mission statement? But carry on there, Shankar. I couldn't resist. That was a brilliant segue.
So like we say, hazards are dynamic. hazards are dynamic, so keeping it simple is important. So dynamic hazards, how do you preempt? Also, the biggest lead indicator I've seen in life is a take three questions and answers before any activity, be it getting out of bed, walking into the office, or getting into the work site. The first question is about situational awareness. What are you doing? Evaluate the environment and conditions around you, required activity. The second question is very critical to safety. What can go wrong? It's about what are the things that could cause harm? What could really go wrong? It's a failure mode as you speak. The third one is what can I do to prevent harm? So the first question is about situational awareness. The second one is about alertness, and the third is avoidance. If you take these three questions before anything you do, either walk into work or wear a mask, I think the answers and the risk perceptions that these inspire will get you to be really safe, Larry.
Well, if you could, Shankar, if you could push that kind of leading indicator mentality down to a personal level, you will have done a great, like, I mean, it easier said than done, what you just said. I've been trying for 21 years now. Let me know when you got it all figured out too, right? You know, I wish I could always stop and think before I did something.
Larry, I just want to bring in a point here. Sorry.
Yeah, please.
Larry, I just want to mention about the stop work authority as a leading indicator, which I mentioned earlier.
Right.
That
Yeah.
so there we want to see a leading indicator where stop work authority, as you rightly asked, how many times you have stopped an operation or a process or an activity just because you found a deviation there. And what we see most of the time, the stop work authority are more emphasized or more implemented by the safety guys themselves. And we have come up with a lead indicator where we want to see more than 50% of these stop work should have come from non-safety guys. So that will give a better scenario of safety culture improvement. So
yeah, I guess it may be, Arun, all I was looking for was just a really black and white example of, you know, we had 4 significant near misses, no damage, nobody hurt, but there could have been, you know, tons of potential for fatality or catastrophic, you know, outcome, like the place blowing up. And so we shut it down. But although I've talked to lots of people who, like, they just, in theory, yes, but they don't actually have an example of where that's ever happened. That's all. I thought that was very interesting. Wada, did you have one?
Yeah, no. Listen, Larry, I'm afraid I'm 7 minutes into my next meeting.
Oh no,
so
what? We're over 2, Wada, so I got to say goodbye to everybody. But thanks again, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Cheers, everybody. The next webinar is in 2 weeks. It is on zero harm, yes or no. Should you have zero harm in your mission statement or not? And it is another subject that is near and dear to my heart. And I know that I will go, when I'm talking with you folks about this offline, I could talk with all of you for hours about these things. Thank you all so much, though, for your perspective on leading indicators. I know we've had a lot of other questions from the audience, and I'm sorry we couldn't get to all of them, everybody, but we will have them all, and we'll get them out to the panelists. And next, in 2 weeks, we'll open up with some of those questions that you asked about leading indicators. We'll get to some of those, and then we'll move on to the next topic, and probably get a little brief update from everybody on COVID again too, because let's face it, it isn't over yet. So thanks again, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in, and thank you again to our expert panelists. I could listen to you guys talk forever. So thanks so much, and also thanks to all of our folks behind the scenes for making this happen. So we'll see you all in 2 weeks. Okay, bye everybody.
Right. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Are we still on?
We didn't see the expert panelist, Larry. We didn't see her, your beautiful daughter. Where's she? You zoomed in.
I don't know where the rest of my family is avoiding me, Shankar. I'm now up in the upstairs bedroom, so